And it's when I talk to uh, members of the National Guard or the military being deployed in the streets of the United States, I think that many of them are afraid of what you went through, that PTSD, that dealing with it going forward. So I have to ask, I'm compelled to ask, um, do you think that we're taking into consideration in the moves that we make in the military today, the what will happen to the members of the military after it's over?
No, no, absolutely not. And I think that's the part where you have to separate. So for instance, if I had to go back and be a Navy SEAL again, I absolutely would. I would take care of myself along the way. So if I wanted to do 20 or 30 years, you can't just be on that bullet train 100 miles an hour all the time forever. You're just going to burn out. Again, what initially is a tailwind, one day is going to be a headwind, and you're going to just like flop. And so you need to take care of yourself. There's no way that I think you can. Well, what you have to do is you have to set up the right treatments and resources to be successful. So if you are going to deploy individuals for X, Y, and Z work, let's make sure we're also taking care of the individual, not just sending them off for fodder. Because we know individuals are going to see stuff and do stuff that they're going to think about or ruin them for the rest of their life, right? So we should have those resources in place. I'm not smart enough to tell you what all the resources are. We are trying to do our best part, John and I, by telling a story to say, hey, we need to have these tools in place because here's the thing, not everyone's going to come back broken. Hopefully, maybe there's a small percentage that do, but however, that percentage has every right to heal. Right. And that we should give them that opportunity, whatever it is, right? And that's what we're doing. And so, and again, the politics question, we were asked before, Marcus, what did you think when you were downrange? And I was like, well, I was operating, let's say, near Jalalabad, and I couldn't think about what was going on in Helmand province if it didn't have anything to do with me directly in terms of politics, because at the end of the day, I wanted to protect myself, the brothers I worked with, and I wanted to come home to my wife and kids. And that's like all that mattered at that time. So I couldn't think about what was going on in DC and the fact that politicians were fighting and should we be there, should we not be there.
Or if you were deployed in the United States.
And if I was deployed in the United States, fortunately for the units that I worked for, collateral damage was a big deal. And I would argue that we produced the least amount of collateral damage when we went out because we were really going for, I would consider us surgeons, right? Like we're going after like bad guy, 1, 2, and 3 that was doing really bad things. And like, that's all we cared about. And,
enemy combatants.
Enemy combatants, of course,
yeah.
Of course. So,
John,
and I can't speak for everybody, right? Like it's just not. It's not black and white. It never is, and we also have to remember that. Like this is.
Yeah, I think Brian. I don't know. Somebody much wiser than me reminded me recently that when you're making a film, telling a story, you have to separate kind of the sins of the system that we're in from the actors and the characters that are participating in it. I think that was, in a way, one of the great lessons of the Vietnam War, right? We blame the soldiers for the policy that the soldiers had nothing to do with. And I think in this case, we're kind of going even further in that direction. We're saying, look, let's not just not blame them, but let's really try to understand these folks as human beings who are suffering and then kind of are dropped out the other end with a total lack of resources. And that's the story that Bonnie and I told in this, we're honored to tell in this film. And it takes twists and turns, and it's really not the story that we expected. And by the end, you see these big burly guys who were just saying, under the influence of these medicines, I felt a connection to the universe and everything. And I'm able to have perspective and insight that I've never felt before. And that was very moving to Bonnie and me.